In this video, we're diving into the vibrant world of the Harlem Renaissance, a remarkable period in the 1920s and 1930s that saw an explosion of African American culture in literature, music, art, and more. From the streets of Harlem, New York emerged a renaissance that would shape American culture and history forever. We will explore the key figures, groundbreaking works, and the lasting impact of this cultural revolution. Whether you're a history buff, a lover of the arts, or someone curious about the roots of contemporary African American culture, this journey has something for everyone. Imagine bringing your family's stories to life, transforming them into treasures for generations to come. Greetings and welcome. I'm Carolyn A. From gettingtotheroots.com, ready to empower you with tools, resources, and inspiration to craft a legacy that's uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore American history's key moments, from the transatlantic slave trade to the civil rights movement, and integrate them into our family stories. We will learn how to celebrate these narratives through unforgettable family reunions and explore ways to broaden your storytelling through blogging and linking family members across distances. The stories of our ancestors are not just memories, they are calls to action, waiting to be told. Join me on this incredible journey. Together, let's uncover the stories that have shaped us, celebrate the diversity of our heritage, and ensure that the legacies of our ancestors are remembered and cherished forever. Let's dive in. What is the definition and overview of the Harlem Renaissance? The Harlem Renaissance was a cultural, social, and artistic explosion that took place in Harlem, New York, from the end of World War I until the middle of the 1930s. During this period, Harlem became a cultural center, drawing Black writers, artists, musicians, photographers, poets, and scholars. These individuals sought to define a new Black identity and to celebrate African American cultural expressions, drawing from their African heritage and the experiences of life in America, which not only redefined African American expression, but also had a big impact on American culture and society as a whole. If you find value in this video, please show your support by liking it, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. This aids in improving our visibility through YouTube's algorithm. Now, let's get back to our video. Why is the Harlem Renaissance important in African American history? The Harlem Renaissance holds an unparalleled position in African American history, representing a moment when African Americans took control of how their culture and community were represented and perceived. It was a time of racial pride and cultural self-expression, challenging the pervasive racial stereotypes and discrimination of the era. This movement laid the groundwork for the civil rights movements that followed by fostering a sense of Black identity and unity. Moreover, it helped to introduce African American literature and art into the American cultural canon, establishing African American artists and writers as significant contributors to the cultural landscape of the United States. The Renaissance also sparked a new sense of hope and aspiration among African American communities by promoting the idea that they could achieve great things despite the challenges posed by racial discrimination and segregation. Through its celebration of Black culture and its insistence on civil rights and social justice, the Harlem Renaissance played a critical role in shaping the trajectory of African American history and culture in the 20th century. What were the causes and effects of the Great Migration? The Great Migration was a pivotal event that saw the relocation of more than 6 million African Americans from the rural South to the cities of the North, Midwest, and West from approximately 1916 through the 1970s. The motivation behind this massive movement was a desire to leave the oppressive conditions of the South, such as Jim Crow laws, economic disenfranchisement, and widespread lynching, and to go north in search of better employment opportunities and living conditions. The effects of the Great Migration were profound. It significantly altered the demographic landscape of American cities, contributing to the vibrant urban African American communities that became the hotbeds of cultural and political activity. Harlem in New York City emerged as the most famous of these urban African American neighborhoods, experiencing an explosive growth in population and becoming a symbol of Black aspirations. How did Harlem become a cultural epicenter for African Americans? Harlem's transformation into a cultural epicenter for African Americans during the 1920s was no accident. It became a refuge for Black intellectuals, artists, and musicians who found in its streets a place to freely express their talents and confront racial prejudices. Harlem offered a unique blend of community support and artistic freedom, creating an environment where African American culture could thrive and evolve. The neighborhood became famous for its Renaissance, attracting figures from across the country and even the Caribbean, drawn by its reputation as a sanctuary for Black creativity. Nightclubs, theaters, literary salons, and galleries flourished, making Harlem the beating heart of African American cultural life and the physical space where the Renaissance was most vividly experienced. What socio-political factors contributed to the Harlem Renaissance? Several socio-political factors contributed to the flowering of the Harlem Renaissance. First, the aftermath of World War I played a significant role. African American soldiers returned home with heightened expectations for civil rights and social justice, having fought for democracy abroad. Their disillusionment with the continued racial discrimination and violence they faced in the United States fueled a collective demand for racial equality and dignity. Moreover, the 1920s were a period of significant intellectual and cultural ferment among African Americans, with leaders like W.E.A.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, advocating for racial pride, self-reliance, and the importance of cultural expression as a means of upliftment. This intellectual milieu provided the ideological underpinnings for the Harlem Renaissance, emphasizing the value of African American cultural contributions and the need for social and political activism. This movement, epitomized by the Harlem Renaissance, called for the celebration of Black culture and heritage, challenging the prevailing racial prejudices and showcasing the intellectual and artistic achievements of African Americans. These factors, combined with the unique confluence of talent and opportunity in Harlem, set the stage for one of the most significant cultural movements in American history, leaving a legacy that would continue to influence and inspire future generations. How did African American writers contribute to the literature of the Harlem Renaissance? Langston Hughes was a leading literary voice, celebrated for his vivid portrayals of Black life in America. Through his poetry, short stories, novels, and plays, Hughes sought to capture the joys, sorrows, and complexities of the African American experience, often employing jazz rhythms and dialect to express his themes. Zora Neale Hurston, another towering figure, made significant contributions. With her anthropological research and her masterful storytelling, most famously in her novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Hurston's work focused on the African American South and Caribbean, exploring themes of racial identity, community, and female independence. Claude McKay was a Jamaican-American writer and poet, whose works, including the seminal poem, If We Must Die, captured the defiant spirit of the Renaissance and addressed issues of race and resistance. John Toomer's Cain is a groundbreaking work that blends poetry, fiction, and drama to explore the complexities of African American life, particularly in the rural South and urban North. In what ways did Blacks contribute to the musical influence of the Harlem Renaissance? Duke Ellington, a composer, pianist, and band leader, elevated jazz to a sophisticated level of musical expression that was well liked by a large audience. His orchestra's residency at the Cotton Club became the soundtrack of the Harlem Renaissance. Louis Armstrong, renowned for his virtuosic trumpet playing and distinctive vocal style, was a pivotal figure in popularizing jazz across racial divides, influencing countless musicians and shaping the sound of the era. Bessie Smith, known as the Empress of the Blues, was a powerful vocalist whose recordings were immensely popular during the Renaissance, giving voice to the African American experience with unparalleled emotional depth. Fletcher Henderson, a band leader, arranger, and pianist, played a crucial role in the development of big band jazz, influencing the music's direction and its acceptance into mainstream culture. How did the Harlem Renaissance influence dance and performance arts? Josephine Baker was an iconic figure in dance and performance, known for her electrifying presence and pioneering performances that challenged racial and gender norms. Her success in Paris, where she became a global star, symbolized the international impact of the Harlem Renaissance. Katherine Dunham was an innovative choreographer and dancer who incorporated African and Caribbean movements into modern dance, significantly influencing the development of dance worldwide. Bill Bojangles Robinson was a legendary tap dancer whose performances helped elevate tap dance to a respected art form and broke down racial barriers in the entertainment industry. How did the visual arts evolve during the Harlem Renaissance? Aaron Douglas was dubbed the father of African American arts. He is known for his murals and illustrations that depict African American history and life, incorporating elements of modernism and African art. Augustus Savage was a sculptor and educator who played a vital role in the Harlem art community, mentoring a generation of artists and advocating for equal rights. Palmer Hayden created works that celebrated African American folklore and everyday life, while also addressing the challenges of racism. Lois Mailou Jones was a prominent painter whose art reflected the Harlem Renaissance's influence and her extensive travels, showcasing the diversity of Black cultural experiences. What role did intellectuals and activists play in shaping the Harlem Renaissance? The Harlem Renaissance was also driven by intellectuals and activists who used their platforms to fight for racial equality and promote African American culture. W.E.B. Du Bois, a founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the editor of its magazine, The Crisis, provided an intellectual framework for the Renaissance, emphasizing the importance of cultural expression in the struggle for civil rights. Alan Locke, known as the Dean of the Harlem Renaissance, influenced many artists and writers through his work, particularly his anthology, The New Negro, which articulated the movement's ethos. James Weldon Johnson was an author, diplomat, and NAACP leader whose literary works and advocacy were crucial to the Renaissance's intellectual climate. Jesse Redmond Faucet, as the literary editor of The Crisis, nurtured the careers of many young writers, contributing significantly to the movement's literary output and ideological direction. What was the significance of jazz music during the Harlem Renaissance? Jazz became the definitive soundtrack of the Harlem Renaissance, symbolizing the innovative spirit and cultural dynamism of the era. Originating from African American communities in the South, jazz was embraced in Harlem as a form of artistic expression that broke conventional boundaries. Musicians like Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong transformed jazz into a sophisticated art form that captured the complexities of modern life and the nuances of Black experience. Jazz's improvisational nature and its ability to blend different musical traditions mirrored the broader cultural experimentation of the Harlem Renaissance. How did theater and performance art contribute to the cultural landscape of the Harlem Renaissance? The theater and performance art of the Harlem Renaissance reflected the diversity and vitality of Black cultural expressions. The period witnessed a flourishing of Black theater companies and productions that ranged from dramas and comedies to musicals that showcased African American talent. the performances of Josephine Baker, who used her fame to challenge racial and gender norms, and the plays of Langston Hughes, which depicted the realities of life in Harlem, were crucial in bringing Black voices and stories to broader audiences. Theater and performance art became vital tools for social commentary, offering spaces for African Americans to narrate their own stories, celebrate their culture, and advocate for their rights. Through these themes and expressions, the Harlem Renaissance contributed significantly to the shaping of American culture, offering new perspectives and voices that challenged the status quo and laid the groundwork for the civil rights movements to come. What was the cultural impact of the Harlem Renaissance on African American communities? The Harlem Renaissance had a profound impact on African American communities, instilling a sense of pride and a strong cultural identity. It was a time when African Americans were encouraged to celebrate their heritage and to view themselves and their culture as valuable and significant. This era saw the establishment of institutions and venues that supported Black art, music, and literature, which served as spaces for community gathering, dialogue, and expression. The Renaissance also fostered a sense of solidarity among African Americans, as it was a collective movement of Black voices demanding recognition and respect. This cultural awakening contributed to a reshaped self-perception among African American communities, emphasizing the importance of cultural heritage and the power of creative expression as tools for social change. How did the Harlem Renaissance influence future generations of artists and thinkers? The legacy of the Harlem Renaissance extends far beyond its time, profoundly influencing countless artists, musicians, writers, and thinkers of later generations. The movement laid the groundwork for future forms of Black expression and cultural movements, such as the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Arts Movement in the 1960s and 1970s, and contemporary artistic expressions that explore racial identity and social justice. The pioneering work of Harlem Renaissance figures has inspired artists across the globe, encouraging them to use their creative talents to explore and affirm their identities, challenge societal norms, and advocate for change. The Renaissance's emphasis on the importance of cultural heritage and artistic expression continues to resonate, serving as a model for how art can be a force for social progress. What role did the Harlem Renaissance play in the civil rights movement? While the Harlem Renaissance was primarily a cultural movement, it also laid important groundwork for the civil rights movement. By promoting racial pride and challenging the status quo, the artists and thinkers of the Renaissance contributed to a changing consciousness regarding race and equality in America. Their work assisted in eradicating stereotypes, combating racial prejudice, and articulating a vision of justice and equality that civil rights activists would pursue in greater detail in the 1950s and 1960s. The Renaissance's celebration of Black culture and its critique of American society played a crucial role in shaping the ideologies and strategies of the civil rights movement, demonstrating the power of cultural expression as a catalyst for social change. That's a wrap on our Harlem Renaissance journey. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and make sure to subscribe for more great content. Big thanks to everyone who watched. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace and love.